I hope it smells stale in the morning. Because my car probably still smells.
Good.
If it's a quiet night out at the beach and your ex-old lady suddenly out of nowhere shows up with a story about her current billionaire land developer boyfriend and his wife and her boyfriend and a plot to kidnap the billionaire and throw him in a loony bin,
I need your help, Doc.
maybe you should just look the other way.
Inherent Vice. So, this film was about a man who is a private investigator who investigates things.
So that interrupts you.
That sounded bad.
Oh.
That's...
Oh god.
Why? Why? What's wrong with you?
What are you talking about?
I'm only going to put this one up.
Oh,
All the other ones will be edited out.
oh god.
So he goes around and well, he sort of gets framed for a murder, and that kind of forces him to look into this stuff. And then it kind of just meanders about him investigating, what kind of smoking weed and being put in places and forced to do things sometimes, and other times kind of just coming across things accidentally in some respects. And it kind of just peters out at the end, I'd say. In many respects, it kind of just, he finds out stuff and he kind of just sort of goes, I don't give a fuck, really. In some respects, he's just kind of I'll just carry on smoking my weed. Doesn't really bother me. And I suppose he kind of saves someone. That's really that was kind of the end, really, wasn't it? In some respects.
Yeah.
But anyway, overall, it was very just meandering stream of consciousness, strange dream world, smoking weed world.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain beyond that, really. And I thought it was genuinely funny. There were funny things about it, and I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the kind of aesthetic as much as it was simple, because ultimately it's dialogue heavy because it's based on the book lore, isn't it? And it's he goes into a situation or a room or whatever and talks, and the camera just kind of goes talk, and then in between you get a little bit of other stuff. I still think it was very nicely shot, even though it was just that, and that was compelling enough. And I enjoyed. At no point was I bored, or did I really notice anything where I was oh man. Well, I did notice a lot of people walking out.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
That was funny.
A lot of people left before the end of the film.
Yeah. So overall, I'd say I liked it. It's not up there with The Master.
Oh god, no.
Or There Will Be Blood from Paul Thomas Anderson. Those two are kind of almost...
They're untouchable.
Yeah, almost untouchable in terms of his stuff. But I didn't not like this. And I kind of feel like you hated it.
No, I didn't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to sum this film up, it's just a big sigh.
So you're disappointed?
Sorry?
You're kind of disappointed then?
Yeah. It's hard to really nail down what I didn't like about this film. And I think there are lots of facets of this film that I had problems with, essentially. I would say that I agree with you that the acting was very good and that Paul Thomas Anderson knows how to direct his actors. And that, Joaquin Phoenix was great. He's like quite a physical actor. He's happy to throw himself around and like, do all that kind of stuff, which is great. And it makes a lot of the funny scenes because of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comedy from that. Not slapstick, but it's done in a way that's it's done. Yeah. It's sort of tasteful. It's not ridiculous.
Yeah.
And maybe that's all I liked about it. And I think the film is carried because of the strength of his acting. And there's a lot of expressions he does and sort of side glances where he's sort of like, looking across at someone that you potentially could miss. He might be in a conversation with like two other people.
Yeah.
And he'll be doing that. I mean, while you're focusing on the other people, he's doing that in response to what they're saying, which is great. And he's constantly active in the film.
I think what summed up his character best though was the scene where the girl says about the housing development or whatever that said something Spanish, and she was like, "Oh, it means I'm sorry" or something in Spanish, doesn't it? Or it was something along those lines. And you see him write in his notepad something Spanish, and that's he just like underlines that, and you're like, that kind of sums him up. He was like, "Oh yeah, something. Yeah, fuck you." I like that.
That's a nice touch, and there were moments that I liked. I think the main problem for me was the way it was shot. You didn't like that? I didn't particularly like how it was constantly in the face of the characters, and there were moments where it wasn't, but generally it was like just in the face of whatever actors were in the scene while they're talking, and there's loads of talking.
Normally I hate that in films, if it's like just face. I hate that, but somehow he made it work.
It can work.
I'm not sure, like...
It can work, but the problem is that I didn't find what they were talking about interesting enough for it to work for me. And this is maybe the crux of the problem for me, in that it's the material. So
obviously we haven't read the book,
but the book is sort of spoken about in terms of it either being brilliant or people are very frustrated by it, and I think that.
So essentially, you're not like the film. You're like happy with the actors and kind of the film, and like.
I'm happy with the choice of actors, and I'm happy with, I guess, how they were directed.
Yeah.
That I didn't really see a problem with that. I have a problem with how it was shot. I didn't really appreciate
that. But then
that.
what are you going to do in some respects?
I understand why it was shot like that, I think, in as much as if it's quiet dialogue, he's a private investigator, so the kind of conversations they will be having need to be sort of almost intense and kind of almost whispering, where they're like, very close,
and they almost
swapping information.
Like it needed to be just.
It's very confined.
Was what you got. Like.
Yeah. I understood that. There was just so much of it, and like I said, what they were talking about wasn't.
You didn't have any driving force that kept you going then?
No.
See, I enjoyed thinking about what was going on.
It was so convoluted.
And it was hard to put together though.
And but then the point is, at the end it's kind of meaningless, and I'm like, it's frustrating because of that, because there's like nothing to grasp, and I get that possibly that's the point, but then I don't know. I don't normally have a problem with films that are a bit more obscure and aren't that are a bit harder to follow.
Normally you don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, no, that's normally not an issue for me at all. But this, I just think it wasn't as interesting to me. And the problem is the source material. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. The book by author.
So you're going to
look
blame.
Here.
You're going to blame
this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Him.
Okay.
So.
Maybe you should go read the book.
Well, no. My understanding of this film, basically, before I went to see it, was it's quite a direct.
Out of interest, what did you grasp from like what he was investigating.
You summed
just
up,
because I want to know.
Well, you summed up quite well. He starts off by wanting to help his sort of ex-girlfriend because she's dating this man who's influential and powerful and has loads of money. He's gone missing. He begins by helping her to locate this man because they're worried that he's being set up. Spoilers, by the way.
It's gonna be extra.
Whatever. So yeah, worried about that. He starts along this path and he sort of ends up getting tangled up in these other sort of little events that are going on. So another man gets murdered and he's framed for it and he has to sort of almost clear his own name. He has a contact in the LA police who he kind of has. They sort of like feed off each other. They sort of hate each other, but there's like a necessity to their relationship, almost.
Yeah.
What?
One of your posters was like, shh, shh. I think it was that one. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know, something about Golden Fang.
Well, because it was always one thing led to another, led to another, led to another, led to another. It was always like a front for something else.
It's what you said, it's a rabbit hole, and
ultimately he comes out the other side and is like, well, what the fuck was that about?
And I'm still not with this woman that I love.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to be with him though, apparently.
Bitch. You wouldn't want to be with Joaquin Phoenix.
So you don't recommend seeing this?
I would not.
Would you ever watch this? Like at home when you're bored? Or you I've seen it, I don't care.
I would not be bored, watch it and be bored. So
whereas I'm more like...
Well, like I say, like just quickly going back to like Paul Thomas Anderson, like how he directed it and the story. My understanding from like a few interviews I've seen of him talking about it and people that have spoken themselves after seeing it, it's a very direct adaptation of the book by name here.
John Cena.
So Paul Thomas Anderson has almost taken what's in the book and put it in the film, and in doing that, he's made it very heavy, very dialogue heavy. You know, at times it felt like you could read this directly rather than just seeing it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a film in that respect. On the other hand, I can't imagine any other director
doing it,
taking this on and doing it as well as he did.
Yeah.
So
I would rather he did something else.
I think this film's done now.
But I'm not as upset.
Put it behind him.
I'm not as upset as I thought I was going to be, actually.
Do something that's like dark again.
I'm more like, go and see it, but don't expect anything. Expect that you're going to hate it.
Pay loads of money
and
to see the film you might hate.
Just let it... Smoke some weed, maybe you'll feel better, I don't know. Just let it happen. And if you like it...
I would say stay to the end. If you go and see it, stay to the end. Like,
don't come in after 5 seconds because you'll miss everything.
Yeah.
Don't leave halfway through because you're like, well,
don't fall asleep during it because you're not understand anything at all. I stayed awake and just about grasped it.
Yeah.
I would not recommend this film particularly. You would, therefore, you decide.
We cancel it out. It means nothing. Our review ultimately is pointless.